Have you ever been drunk or high and came up with this truly amazing idea but then became sober and realized it wasn't as amazing as you thought it was? If so, what was the idea? One time I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea. A revolutionary idea. Something I needed to write down as fast as possible so I wouldn't forget. So I wrote it down and went back to sleep. I woke up, looked at the piece of paper, and all it said was Pennzoil mini wheats. I've never quite figured out what I was thinking. Maybe it was like Tide Pods for changing your oil. Instead of dealing with messy bottles and funnels, just pop a handful of oil pods in to confuse the hell out of anyone who tries disassembling your motor to unsize it. While taking what I thought was acid and turned out to be a 25 boom, I was beyond confident that I had not only finally understand the truest deepest secret of the universe, but that I had distilled the idea into an image that could be drawn out. I was certain that with that image I could remember everything about the true universal secrets when I came down. The next day I looked at the paper, and it was a line with a circle on each end, like a dumbbell. I have no idea what it means. When taking DMT on acid I had a trip where I flew into space, saw the entire universe on a cosmic wall, and heard what the meaning of life was. When I opened my eyes I wrote down the meaning to life in my phone. After sobering up I looked at my notepad and all I wrote down was walls. Universe balloon theory. Big bang happens. Universe dies out. Unfathomable time passes. Cataclysmic event occurs. And another big bang happens. Rinse and repeat. I got high one time and thought of a great business idea where everyone pays money to a pot and one person wins it all. Turns out the lottery already exists. I thought it would be practical if you would have a tag with your address written on it attached to your keys. So if you ever lost them they can be sent back. Seemed brilliant to me. Thieves might enjoy this idea as well. My bank does something cool that solves that problem. A keychain with a dog tag that has a specific code that the bank registers to your address. If you lose your keys, anyone who sees them can throw them in a mailbox and they'll be sent back to you. King Kong but with a giraffe. They said ideas that aren't still great when you sober up though. King Long. Sugar bags. Like tea bags but for sugar. Tea and 2 sugars. 1 tea bag. 2 sugar bags. As we were stoned as frick, my cousin holding up an emptied tea bag filled with sugar and me trying to carefully tie it back up with a piece of cotton. My cousin disappointingly says sugar cubes. HMH. What if you made pre-sugared tea bags? Little paper sugar packets are standard in cafes where I live. X-Acto spoon. It is an X-Acto knife, only a spoon. A food truck specializing in egg rolls the size of burritos. Now this is an idea I can get behind. My friend is a lawyer and when he was in law school did the summer internship to Ghana studying international law. We were like 2 blunts deep and he came up with the brilliant idea to make chairs in Ghana because everyone he saw there was just sitting on the ground. He was convinced we could have made a fortune selling chairs. In my first year of engineering in uni one of the design projects was to come up with a chair made of cardboard. The idea was to make a chair supportive and comfortable enough, whilst also being easy to assemble by cutting out shapes on a large piece of cardboard so as to keep the shipping costs low. The winning design was supposed to be implemented, and if my memory serves correctly, the initial pilot program was going to be for a small community in Ghana. I had this idea that the Taken films should each focus on a different set of skills. Like Liam Neeson could be an amazing chef in Taken 2, and perhaps a postman in Taken 3. Honestly, this sounds like a much better version of what we got, but I still wanted to involve saving a kidnapped person somehow. Whilst I came up with the idea of making pens with white ink that would cover up any mistakes on white paper. Realized not only that it had been done already but that I had one in my backpack next to where I keep the pen I used to write down the idea. Edit. Mr. Word. A thing you put on the laptop charger thing that gets hot which keeps your cheese dip hot. Ick, now what? Now that I use a laptop and know how hot the battery can get, you just might be onto something. KF console vibes. I have a running note on my phone with my ideas I have while intoxicated. I think my best one is what if there was a Queer Eye spin-off called Third Eye where hippies and conspiracy theorists try to awaken people who are already happy with their lives. Most of them are just done with such highlights as future math. Will be cool and there's a lot of cute animal behavior. Right, double quotation mark. I love it. Would 100% watch. Would this be like what not to wear and their friends and family secretly film them and enter them in the show, and then third eye comes and gives them a forcible conspiracy makeover? Everyone ends up in cult wear and their house is redecorated with tinfoil wallpaper. I was thinking that kids these days need more time on the road to be better drivers, so maybe Uber should partner with driving education groups and like subsidize them or pay the kids in college bonds or whatever. Yeah, maybe hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi services isn't such a great idea. LOL, this is great. Hi, my name's Kyle. I'm 14. This is my mom. So where you headed today? Right, double quotation mark. Hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi services already feels this way. I had this idea for a movie in a similar vein of Cabin in the Woods, where these people move into a haunted house. Except the plot is from the antagonist's perspective, where the ghosts haunting the house treat it like a job, and have interviews in front of a camera, reality show style, venting about how tedious the little aspects of the job are. The premise was this ghost had reluctantly picked up and followed this family to this new house in order to keep haunting them, and inadvertently stepped on another ghost's jurisdiction, and they'd bicker about who haunts who. Antics ensue. I realize now that this is more or less just what we do in the shadows. Damn you, Taika. Yours is different enough to where it is its own thing of the same genre. I would honestly love seeing your idea become reality. It sounds absolutely hilarious. Could even make it like an anthropology type thing with each episode following a different type of spook. Episode 1 is a ghost. 2 is a werewolf, etc, etc. Yours sounds equally as amusing and fully worthy of its own film. There are lots of films out there with basically the same premise. My grand idea was to put caramelized onions in my hamburger helper. Yeah, it was good but not as mind-blowing as I thought it would be when I was high as a kite. Always felt free throws in basketball slowed the game down too much. Felt instead they should have dunks instead, where the player that was fouled has a running start from the 3-point line and the one who committed the foul is at the basket defending against the dunk. I suppose this could turn into an endless loop of fouling. Is this Shaq? Hello. This is the NBA Players Association. We'd like to speak to you about a 300% increase in injuries league-wide. I do like the premise of removing the free throw though, lol. Running for my local school board, I had a lot of issues with the way the education works in our country and believed the best way to fix the system was by running an honest campaign and promising to fight for the change that would help kids learn better. Ultimately, I sobered up and realized at the time, unemployed, stoned 24-year-old with no kids was not the best candidate. Unemployed, stoned 24-year-old with no kids was not the best candidate. Have you seen the people who generally make up school boards? You're downright overqualified in comparison. I'd vote for the unemployed guy who was pissed off at the shitty education he received. The man has an axe to grind. Turn signals on grocery carts. I once had the idea to have 2 left turn signals on a car. One for a regular left turn, and a different one to indicate you were going to do a U-turn. I have no idea why this made so much sense at the time, but for the rest of that night I legit thought I was a genius. And horns. And knives. Yep. Pre-melted cheese edit. Okay, I feel the need to clarify as people are saying nacho cheese or Velveeta or cheese whiz. I was so baked. My idea was pre-melted cheese. Like a boil in the bag rice. But for cheese. Like a block of cheddar cheese. In a sandwich bag and boiled till molten. And then it stayed molten. Like didn't solidify and I could just pour it on stuff. Like I was so high. I literally forgot all the aforementioned products existed and though I was going to be a freaking millionaire, then started to talk with my friends about where I should live, be it LA or New York, in a penthouse suite, and have a butler and maids and shoot. Then I came to after passing out at some point, we melt the cheese then freeze it. Then anytime you want melted cheese you just pop it in the microwave for a couple of minutes. Well, on paper, that's kinda what Cheese Whiz is, and in French at least, Kraft Singles packages indicates that it's a produit de fromage fondue which translates to melted cheese product. So, yeah, not a bad idea at all it seems. When I did shrooms, I came up with the absolutely genius idea that NASA should employ young children and send them to space for missions because they have more natural curiosity and aren't jaded yet by adulthood and they might notice things that are more experienced Astronaut would miss because they all look from a different perspective. I was convinced I needed to email NASA right away and tell them about my brilliant epiphany. They also have less weight, saving expensive fuel. This would make a beautiful kids movie or picture book. Beer rocks. When drinking at an outdoor place, using plastic cups, you put fancy rocks in your beer so the cups don't blow over. Genius. Mine was similar. The theory was, the top half of the cup of beer tastes better than the bottom half. So we make cups that have the bottom half already full of something else. We invented smaller cups. I don't think we should be giving drunk people projectiles. When a football match goes into extra time, they should add a second ball. If it gets to halftime without anyone scoring, they add a third ball. I'm actually not sure this idea is a bad one. Bobby, you can't solve every problem using pinball logic. That would definitely make an interesting game. My notes app is full of liquor weed soaked epiphanies and revelations from my younger years. My favorite reads, any boy that has the pineapple is a good boy. Right, double quotation mark. Correct. I have the same exact thing. Some of my favorites are, it's a warship baby, Breaking Bad is a Drake and Josh spin-off, thanks Mountain Dew. How are you? Somebody spilled barbecue sauce on my can. One time when I was tripping I wrote down this whole page of numbers and swore it was the answer. The numbers Mason. What do they mean? My mother was a hardcore meth addict. She used to write numbers all the time down and basically said she was going to win the lottery. Of course we all thought she was crazy. Well, guess what? She went down one of those inflatable slides and broke her foot. We had a lawyer in the family, sued, and she took home $300K after lawyer fees etc. Obviously the pain was horrible. My mother's foot was hanging. After about 6 months she was back to normal. She told me, see, I told you I was going to win the lottery. She burned that entire $300K in 2 years and didn't even pay for my $30K college debt. Not me, but Paul McCartney. The first time he got high he apparently discovered the meaning of life and immediately went to write it down. When he woke up the next morning he looked at the paper and it said there are 7 levels. My creative writing tutor had a comedian friend who kept dreaming about telling the world's funniest joke. He'd get a standing ovation every time and he toured the world on this one joke. But when he woke up he could never remember it. One night he kept a notepad next to his bed, woke from the dream and scribbled down the joke. Got up the next morning, looked at the page and it said I am a hammer. Apostrophe. A friend of mine did the same thing on acid. Hers said artsy fartsy with arrows pointing in every direction. Once while high my friends came up with an online call center for people who have anxiety while high to call. It was named TripAdvisor. These exist and do good around the globe. Our trips it, me etc. Reminds me of the guy in 30 Rock who kept coming up with business names that already exist. I was on acid and had a revelation that I had to make the next Google. I have no idea what it means to be the next Google, but regardless it felt like the best idea in the world. The feeling of checking my notes app the next day for the grand idea I had and seeing be the next Google was hilarious.